Hi, and welcome to the question of the week. The question this week is, why do you think most people judge each other? Is there value in it, and does it help? Our world lives in relativity. Everything is compared and contrasted to something else, and that is what gives life meaning. We cannot know or distinguish the color red if we don't have a contrast like blue or yellow, and we cannot say something is loud unless we have something quiet to compare it with. Up means nothing without down, and so on. Judgment fits into our reality with another layer, which is our opinion about it. Observation without judgment is simply witnessing, and that is something that animals and some very special folk can do very well and quite naturally. On the other hand, observation with an opinion can become judgment. My definition of judgment is an opinion or conclusion where one is deemed better than the other. Another good definition is the ability to make considered decisions or come to sensible conclusions. Now, let us hold that information in the back of our minds as I delve into the very important topic of judgment. Why do we judge? This world is changing, evolving, and ascending, and with every passing moment, there is more diversity, more ideas, more novelty than ever before. In fact, novelty is increasing exponentially around the world, and it seems to go hand in hand with judgment. Looking at the chart in this post, you can see how judgment is a term that has dramatically increased since the early 1900s. And what this tells us is that we're thinking about judgment more than ever. And so the question is why, and does it help us? I think the main reason is, as I have said already, novelty. The more differences we have in our world, the more opinions we will have about them, and conversely, the more judgment. Judging others is almost a natural quality of the human condition. We tend to think that our opinions are right and also better or more true than someone else's. And in these times of global ubiquitous information flow and exchange, we are being presented with many more different ideas than ever before. And this can be quite challenging when ideas conflict, and especially so when they're related to core issues such as religion, sexual orientation, and climate. As novelty increases, it seems that polarization of our views and opinions also increases. When we hold on to an idea or personal truth about the world, we can get very attached to it, and even more so if we're presented with another idea that is totally the opposite. Let us take an example that happened to me last week. I posted on Facebook about how global warming is, in my opinion, based on fake data and ulterior motives to control and manipulate us. One of the very first responses was from my dear old friend, Still Gideon, who promptly informed me that what I was saying was dangerous and a bad thing. And from his perspective, he was totally right, because his opinion is that global warming is real and a great threat to the world. I think about 4 other people told me the same thing, and I'm sure many others judged me as a total idiot and were sure that I was wrong. The 350 comments and debate that ensued then consisted of us all throwing around many statistics, facts, and movies to try to illustrate our point. It's fair to say that none of us was any the wiser afterwards, and I don't think any opinions really changed by the end of a week-long debate. Now, during this debate, some people got angry and shared their frustration without any real depth or information. Others remained calm and shared their incredible scientific knowledge to illustrate how I was totally wrong, and others just looked on quietly, I assume to gather more information in an attempt to learn more about it. Now, what is the difference between those who got angry and those who just shared their opinions? Well, The way it seems to me is that those who have made their mind up are completely attached to their truth and no longer wish to observe or take in new information were the most upset. I consider myself to be very open-minded, which is how I came to this new conclusion in the first place. And so for me, I didn't get angry at anyone sharing their data or opinions, but I did get upset with being judged. To me, it felt like being judged was closing the door on any further truth-seeking. Just like when a judge in court slams the hammer down, that is it. The end of all debate and truth-seeking. The judgment is final. So, what value is there in doing this? Well, it looks to me like the greatest value in judgment is protection. When we judge, we are protecting our ideas, our morals, and even our way of life. And for many, it is not even possible to keep an open mind or debate things like whether God exists or whether their holy scriptures are true or not. And even the idea of this can lead to great conflict and war, and you know what I'm talking about. So, what are we protecting exactly? With just about every war and fight on this earth being about I'm right and you are wrong kind of attitude, it is a very pertinent question to ask. Now, we don't like change, and another very important reason for the prevalence of judgment in our world is that we don't like change. Us humans are genuinely habitual creatures, and once we have established our ideas and values, they become more or less entrenched or hard-coded in our neural networks. And changing our values means massive changes in our brain wiring, and so unless you've grown up like myself with great changes happening, we will resist change and therefore judge. I believe one of the reasons I was able to shift my perspective on global warming is because I've seen so much change in my life from a very early age. I lived in 4 countries and went to 7 different schools before I was 12 years old. I've lived in so many different places and had so many different friends and experiences that I'm very used to change and usually welcome it. In fact, I thrive on change because that's how my mind has learned to adapt to the constant changes in my life. I believe that if we're brought up with changes in our lives, then we will be less likely to judge. I mean, how can you judge when you're exposed to totally different cultures and values? And because of that, I have really learned acceptance and tolerance and welcome other opinions without feeling too threatened. And here we come to the crux. Ultimately, we are just protecting our identity. It is that simple. We have our perspective and identity that is made up of the many ideas and notions that we believe about our world. Our ego is the creator of our identity, and when the ego feels threatened, it will judge something else to protect its own integrity and existence. And so judgment is almost like a life preservation mechanism that we revert to whenever our view of the world or ourselves is challenged. It's a powerful mechanism and one that is leading the way to ever more disharmony and conflict. And so, does it help? Yes and no. It helps the person judging to maintain their truth, whether it's correct or not, and it helps the person judging to feel safe and in control of things. It helps the person judging to be able to continue to relate to the world in the way they have been accustomed to. And in a way, it's the ultimate last line of defense when we cannot use other methods of protection, so we can hold on to reality as we know it. But does it really help the world? No, no, and no. Oh my God, how much war and death do we have to witness to realize that judgment is the most toxic tool of suppression that we live with? And what if it was okay to have a different opinion, okay to be different, okay to be wrong, even if it means rethinking some core ideas or values that we have held? It takes a humble person to admit that they may be wrong, and it takes an open-minded person to let others in without having to judge them. Our world desperately needs to let go of judgment because it's tearing us apart, and we are learning so much about our reality and are making incredible advances in science and even religion as our secrets are coming out. The only way to move forward and progress is to let go of what we think is right or wrong and be open to learning new things. It doesn't have to be a threat. It doesn't have to matter if we were wrong about something our whole lives. What matters is that we are here in this present moment, rethinking and reevaluating things and adjusting our ideas so that things align. If we put people down and judge them for something, and then come to realize we were wrong about our ideas, how can we then change? When we point the finger at others, we have 3 fingers pointing back at ourselves. And that is important to remember, because the moment we judge others, we are making the situation even more polarized and limit our progress. We make it even harder for ourselves to change when we have criticized others for their opinions or ideas. It is hard to say we were wrong about something at the best of times, and even more so when we have so much invested in the ideas that we have become attached to. Since we are almost like judging machines, it is not feasible to expect us not to judge anything. So when we talk about non-judgment, it's important to realize that it isn't about stopping judgments from ever arising, since it's the nature of the mind to judge. Instead, it's about changing your relationship to your judgments, knowing that they're temporary thoughts and you don't need to be swept away by them just because they arise in your mind. This is part of mindfulness, a great practice that can bring us a new perspective on the world. Non-judgment opens you to the beauty of life, and non-judgment helps cultivate a peaceful mind, and letting go of judgment of bad frees you from the suffering caused by interpreting things in this way. Non-judgment helps you see clearly, and when reacting to your judgments, you're only seeing your interpretation of what's there, and letting go of those judgments helps you see things as they really are.